Alright guys, I'm back with another chapter in 1 Samuel, or in 1 Samuel chapter 7. There is no header for this specific chapter, it is a continuation of chapter 6. And so we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. So the men of Kiriath Jearim came to get the ark of the Lord. They took it to the hillside home of Abinadab and ordained Eleazar, his son, to be in charge of it. The ark remained in Kiriath Jearim for a long time, 20 years in all. During that time all Israel mourned because it seemed the Lord had abandoned them. Then Samuel said to all the people of Israel, "If you want to return to the Lord with all your hearts, get rid of your foreign gods and your images of Ashtoreth. Turn your hearts to the Lord and obey him alone. Then he will rescue you from the Philistines." So the Israelites got rid of their images of Baal and Ashtaroth and worshipped only the Lord. Then Samuel told them, "Gather all of Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you." So they gathered at Mizpah, and in a great ceremony drew water from a well and poured it out before the Lord. They also went without food all day and confessed that they had sinned against the Lord. It was at Mizpah that Samuel became Israel's judge. When the Philistine rulers heard that Israel had gathered at Mizpah, they mobilized their army and advanced. The Israelites were badly frightened, and when they learned that the Philistines were approaching, "Don't stop pleading with the Lord our God to save us from the Philistines," they begged Samuel. So Samuel took a young lamb and offered it to the Lord as a whole burnt offering. He pleaded with the Lord to help Israel, and the Lord answered him. Just as Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering, the Philistines arrived to attack Israel. But the Lord spoke with a mighty voice of thunder from heaven that day, and the Philistines were thrown into such confusion that the Israelites defeated them. The men of Israel chased them from Mizpah to a place below Beth-kar, slaughtering them all along the way. Samuel then took a large stone and placed it between the towns of Mizpah and Jeshanah. He named it Ebenezer, which means the stone of help, for he said, "Up to this point the Lord has helped us." So the Philistines were subdued and didn't invade Israel again for some time. And throughout Samuel's lifetime, the Lord's powerful hand was raised against the Philistines. The Israelite villages near Ekron and Gath that the Philistines had captured were restored to Israel, along with the rest of the territory that the Philistines had taken. And there was peace between Israel and the Amorites in those days. Samuel continued as Israel's judge for the rest of his life. Each year he traveled around, setting up his court, first at Bethel, then at Gilgal, and then at Mizpah. He judged the people of Israel at each of these places. Then he would return to his home at Ramah, and he would hear cases there too. And Samuel built an altar to the Lord at Ramah. That is the end of chapter 7, guys. Again, another short, sweet one. It looks like a lot of these chapters in 1 Samuel are relatively short, which I don't mind. I actually like it when the passage is a little bit shorter. Sometimes when I read longer passages, it's harder for me to reflect on things that are much greater than a couple of bullet points. And the longer a passage gets, the more difficult it is for me to get really a refined perspective on that one passage. It requires a couple more reads just because of the length of the passage. But when I read this, it kind of breaks my heart for the judges. And that has to go through all the judges that we've read through, having just read through Judges and 1 Samuel and all these people that have come to struggle and called to serve. I wouldn't put myself in their shoes, but understanding that when you have any role in leadership, there's such a disconnect that I have. And maybe the right word isn't disconnect, but being a Christian man, I identify as being a flawed person. I'm born into sin, and I regularly sin. It's a daily thing, and I'm so far from perfect. But when you're in a position to judge or evaluate others, it can be very difficult, especially those that are desiring to fall in line with God, for me to be don't want to say effective because that's not the right word, although sometimes you can still struggle to be effective. Without bias. And I say that for the simple fact of I recognize I'm not perfect. I recognize that I have many flaws. When your job is to judge others or to evaluate others, and you are critical, hopefully in a constructive manner, but critical of the work that they do, I feel like such a hypocrite. And even if that's something that they do, I'm great at. It's beyond that. I see people that need love or need support or need help, and those are all good things, and those are all markers in recognizing that and wanting to help and serve people. But it's so difficult for me to have to look for that, even if it's in the purpose of serving that person, simply because I know that I fall short. And so I often have conflicting emotions about it, and it's a painful process because we're supposed to be like that. We're supposed to walk in line with God so that when we see someone without it, we don't do it in a harsh manner. We say, hey, look at what this can do for you. If you just do it like this, then everything would be better. Everything would work out a little bit easier. It's not going to immediately happen, and it's not going to you're not going to be void of hardship, but you'll be sustained. You'll find peace because you'll align with God, and He will ensure that you have peace, if only just within Him. But in recognize that how to apply that to others outside of yourself, when you think about the reflection of being a judge for Israel and the leaders that have been there, and how isolating and polarizing those positions are. Everybody recognizes that they need them, but they're revered. And the most humbling part about that is that oftentimes when they truly are a man of God and after His own heart, they see their own faults. So I can't imagine how difficult it would be to keep the company of others when you just have to be so full of God that I don't think there'd be room for anything else. And I think that's His intent. I think that that's why it's difficult. If you're a father, if you're a husband, you are there to lead. You are there to be an example. And that can be polarizing because you're supposed to do it selflessly as well. And those that don't align with that pursuit, it'll constantly be friction, and it's so difficult to work past. But if you do it the right way, you will simply do it in such a sacrificial manner that the example that you'll give will be one that people will want to aspire to be like. And not everybody, but those that don't want to, those that don't see that, those that still get frustrated. Not that even if when you get constructive criticism, it might not be frustrating. It's usually frustrating. But there's something that when you receive that in earnest, it changes you. And you might not even be aware of the standard. And I'm talking, that could be spiritually, that could be professionally. If there's a standard and that you're just not aware, but someone kindly presents that to you, say, hey, this is what we're trying to do here. Let's try and correct. And you go, oh, I had no idea, but that makes sense. If we all aligned like that, there'd be consistency that could be had, and we could push towards that goal. This is exactly what the kingdom of heaven is like. There's a perfect standard that we all fall short on, and He regularly gives us constructive, not even destructive. He gives us constructive criticism. Say, hey, you're doing great. I love that you're trying so hard. You just got to do it like this, though. Thanks for trying. I love you. Here, grab my hand. I'll show you. And that's the only way I would ever want to lead. I couldn't imagine wanting to do, we see people in the Bible, certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Certain figures, historical figures in the Bible, and even in our regular history, American history, World War II, all these different world leaders. Some people want fear, and some people want to rule by that power. It can be powerful because people intimidate, and they respect authority. And even if they don't respect authority, they'll fear power. They'll fear retribution. But you're not going to recruit people to that process. They're always going to be trying to escape, let alone maybe even trying to fight back. The only way to do it is the way God shows you how to do it. If you want it to last forever, you got to love. And that's difficult. when you're a judge and you're there to correct and having to do it in a loving manner, ask a parent. Ask a parent how imperfect children are and how you want them to be better and better than yourselves, especially as a parent. I imagine most parents want their children to be better than they were. How do you do that when you're not better than you are? You got to have God. And so I'll leave that as it is. And so that is the end of chapter 7, like we said. So have a good night. God bless. I love you. Jesus loves you. And I'll be back for chapter 8, where the header reads, Saul becomes king of Israel. Israel requests a king. And there's also going to be a little bit of a prelude there that lets us know that as we get into chapter 8, chapters 8 through 15 are going to be about Samuel and Saul. And Saul will be the king of Israel. And that is the king before we see a fallout and we eventually get King David. So have a good night. God bless. I look forward to getting to this story with you guys tomorrow. Until then, have a good night. See ya.